My name is Brennan King. I'm an artist. Grew up over in Sarasota, Florida. A lot of my friends became interested in artwork because of comic books or something like that, and that wasn't really it for me. My father was a sign painter, and he painted landscape paintings. And watching him paint the landscape paintings, he didn't do it professionally, he just did it for himself as a hobby at home. And he actually didn't do very many of them. I wish he had done more. He only did about 5 or 6 in my life. But watching him do that really gave me a strong interest in the Florida landscape. And so as I got older though, my brother started drawing dinosaurs. And so that I had to compete with my brother with everything. So I'm the younger brother. He's a year and a half older than me. So I strive to follow in his footsteps and draw the best dinosaur I could. And he lost interest in being an artist at some point, probably just around the 9th grade. And I kept on going. I kept my interest, kept getting better. And back then it was interesting because I really didn't know what it was like, what it meant to be an artist. I had some good art teachers through the years, but I guess I just didn't get it. I always thought it was more about just replicating an image perfectly, like taking a photograph and copying it perfectly, like with graphite pencils. So I actually ended up going to the University of Florida and majoring in finance. Was working as a commercial loan officer in my 20s and decided that that's really not what I wanted to do. I was pretty unhappy, so I decided to go back to the Ringling School of Art and Design in Sarasota. And I spent 3 years there, and I just had the most amazing instructor in painting and conceptualization for illustration work. And they were really focused on coming up with ideas for editorial illustrations and honing your painting skills. And he was definitely one of the best instructors. Larry Kressick is his name. He now heads the illustration department at the Rocky Mountain School of Art and Design in Denver. He was very thoughtful. He took his time. He listened to us as students, and he showed us how to paint. Because really, up until that point, I had only worked with pencils and charcoal in black and white. And by the time I left Ringling a couple years later, I felt that I was pretty versed in the idea of not only being an artist, coming up with your ideas, thinking outside the box. You're not just replicating stuff, you're coming up with original ideas. Whether it be going out on location and painting, you're always thinking as an artist and observing. Or whether it's back in the studio where a lot of it is thinking then and analyzing what you're doing.
In the early part of your art, you pretty much worked in black and white. Mm-hmm. Is that an advantage?
I think working in black and white at first, it's definitely was an advantage for me, and people say it's an advantage. It really gives you a chance to look at the contrasts. You take the color out of the equation and just look at the contrast of what you're trying to draw and actually eventually paint. Charcoal is a very good way to do that because you get very dark darks. White paper, you get very light lights. And the way that charcoal goes down on the paper is similar to a large paintbrush. And how I paint. Like I said, I did work mostly in black and white up until the time I went to art school. And one of the things that my painting teacher taught me, and actually Mike Hodge is one of my other strong influences there at Ringling, was that you pretty much should be able to communicate what you're trying to communicate as an illustrator through black and white. And adding color can add something extra to what you're working on, you know, through the emotion of the color. But, you know, that's always secondary. It's a secondary consideration to the actual communicating of the drawing. I work less as an illustrator and more as a fine artist now, and there is a difference between the two. It gives you an opportunity to just really pursue how you see art and analyze the artistic experience.
I know you got a commission coming up with the Palm Beach Post.
That's right. The Palm Beach Post commissioned me to do a series of 12 paintings for them, like I did in 2008 for the 2009 calendar. So I'm excited about that. I've finished several of the paintings already, and they're running them in the accent section first, which is their daily features section. This is the first painting that ran, and this subject that they've commissioned me for is, it's Palm Beach. Palm Beach is the subject. And they've kind of given me freedom to go out there and just see what I think would be interesting. And one of the interesting things is the lake trail. It's the trail that runs all the way along the Lake Worth Lagoon on the west side of the island. And it's a public trail, and a lot of joggers and bicyclists go down it. But it has a history that goes all the way back to the late 1800s when Henry Flagler was developing Palm Beach. And it's the way the locals got around back then. It's either walking or biking along the lake trail.
Brennan, do you have an idea of what the other 11 months are going to be in this new calendar?
Well, it'll be a variety between some of the parks out on Palm Beach, where I'm more interested in analyzing some of the vegetation, you know, some of the more interesting trees and gardens out there than I am necessarily focusing in just on the historic buildings.
Great.